Now it sees you.
No. No.
Hey, this is the second part. You can be part of it now.
What?
Because I'm going from the elementary school to the middle school, then from high school, and yeah.
So I just get to kick back, relax, and sit here.
No, you can join in and when it's time. So when it comes to that part,
I don't have nothing to say here.
nee, nee.
Me yourself.
That's
I have to take my pills.
fine.
My climate sucks. I'll be up and down, bouncing around anyways.
Yeah,
That's just my life, don't you know?
yeah.
Yeah. I'm not here.
Okay, so if anybody's commenting, I can't see anything right now. But if you're watching, just let me know on Facebook because I can click over and look. Okay, well, I'm doing part 2 of where I left off. So don't mind seeing the hubby coming back and forth. He's just doing his own thing. So it's just on me, guys. So don't worry about the background. So anyway, I'm going to finish where I left off, which would be, well, my cliff note from Wayne Middle School. Well, let's see. Most of the people that I went to elementary school went to Wayne. And then from Wayne, I ran into a lot of my friends there, and I ended up having a lot of problems there as well. I ended up running into a couple people that are really close to me. One I actually dated. He's also part of my story. Um, and again, I say this with general kindness. I've accepted my past and moved forward, as I'm going to tell you in part 2. I've also things have changed over the years, and we have all mended our ways and moved on from there. But the one guy that I did date in middle school in Wayne Middle School was Jeremiah Maloney. I know he's watching this with Lisa, which I don't care. But at any rate, yeah, him and I pretty much hit it off, and that's pretty much where I met his brother Matthew as well. Um, I also had a bunch of friends there. Some of them were kind of like at a distance, and then some of them were pretty much close. Um, but one of them I went to middle school with was also Jared Bizarro. I went to school with him. We were in just about almost every class, almost not all. But he would always pick on me and all that, and um, things like that. He stood up for me once, which kind of shocked the hell out of me. I also I dated Jeremiah for like a very short time. Um, then he ran into some issues, we'll say, because I'm not gonna post that on a live. That's everybody else in that family already knows what it's about, and I don't have to air it over here. and I'm not going to. I'm going to be respectful to the family because they are friends of mine, very dear friends of mine. Um, but something very personal happened, very private that I will not discuss. But he ended up leaving the school and went somewhere else. Um, but he comes into the story later. Um, I also dated after that. I ended up dating Stephen Skelly. Stephen Skelly is it's he's pretty outlandish at times, but he's pretty cool and very, very, very hyper. He I ran into him a few years back, and he's pretty much mellowed out quite a bit. Still into baseball, unfortunately. I don't do sports anymore, but um, I used to go to his house all the time because of my foster mother and the way that she treated me. Um, she Now that I have this on an adult side, seeing how I had it on a different side and it wouldn't post, so um, my foster mother Marsha was really not really worth that at that time. It just wasn't worth me being there because I felt like an outcast. I felt like I really didn't belong there, and so I chose to take myself out of the situation that I was in because I instead of me at that time when I was younger, I didn't want to face my problems. I didn't know how to. Um, I always ran from my problems, and everybody else would kind of like, I would like have somebody there to like, you take care of the problem. I don't want to deal with it. And I didn't really, I didn't really do much in middle school. I mean, every once in a while I would be kind of rude, nasty, but that was like given time, bottled up over the years and things like that, where I felt that I needed to defend myself because the people that were around me at that time had pretty much were not there. And the one person that I thought really would take my back really never did. And so I kind of had to, think about things thoroughly and go, okay, I need to turn around and take care of me at that point. So I swear I really started to, defend myself because I always hung around guys all the time. I mean, I had very few friends that were females, but not very much because I'd either feud with them or, we'd have a disagreement or whatever the case may be. We always ended up bumping heads or they ended up moving or going somewhere else or whatever the case was. But I had a couple friends there. One of them was Mitchell Andreyko. And everybody who knows Mitchell knows where I'm going at, and I don't even have to mention how he is. But for the people that do not, um, he was one of the persons that I had behind me that would always be there for me, help me out. If it was a guy, he was there. If it was a female, he's like, hey, why don't you do this or do that or whatever. He was never, when it came to guys, it was, I'm going to handle this right here and now. And then there was times where he, just joke around because I was always Mitchell. Anybody that knows Mitchell knows that's how he is. But then I had, in the process of that time, I ended up running into the rest of the family. Um, the youngest out of them all was Marty. And I was in pretty much every class with this guy. Fake, whatever, I don't know. But at that time, I didn't foresee it that way. And so I ended up running into Marty and then Michael and then Matthew, all in, one bunch. And, you know, when I first started going to Wayne, I didn't really have him in my class defending me really, it wasn't until like days later, um, he actually defended me, which was pretty odd for me, and plus his brother Mitchell as well. I had a huge crush on Mitchell a long time ago. Not so much anymore, but I also did on Marty as well because they both were my type at that time. But at any rate, over the years, I ran into Marion Ackley, uh, April Brown, which she doesn't remember, but I do. Um, also ran into Tony Denning, the whole Fuller family, Carrie Strange slash whatever her name is now, Amy Schaefer, Christina Boyer, Christina Henneberry, Susan Douglas, and the list just goes on. I mean, they all knew me my whole life. Was they would hear me talk about how my life was growing up and how things were. Some of them, when we were outside, waiting for the doors to open, they would see everything that's going on with my foster mom. And at that time, um, they would see me outside and things like that, or the night complaining on who who she was, and so I told them. Um, After that, I went graduated from Wayne to I went to East for like 1 year. Um, I had ran into about maybe a few friends there that I knew from middle school, but it was okay. I got to finish up there at that school, and this is where a lot of people that now including my husband comes into play. This is where Angel, Aaron, Josh behind me, and a lot of people come into play that I grew up with for a good 2 years. Um, and this is where I went from East High, my ninth grade year, to Wattsburg Seneca High School, of all places that I didn't want to go at that time. But I did anyway because I didn't have a choice. Because when you're young, obviously the parents have more of the choice than the kids, so it's whatever. I didn't want to move because ended up having all my friends go to East High. But I ended up telling my friends back there, I said, you know what, you guys are going to see me in one of the two schools. It's either going to be East or Central. And this is before I left to go to Wattsburg. Well, when I went to Wattsburg is where I met Aaron, Angel, Carrie, and as I said, which are three of them I got to meet, um, and they I got to see some of their true colors. I also ran into Jesse Post and some more friends I may have talked to over the phone that I knew. Um, Went to school and never was not learning a thing, and I mean a thing. Um, the guy that taught the class was a complete utter idiot. He would read from books and stuff and literally expect us to read them. Now, anybody, as far as you're considered, you're reading a book, it's like, why am I reading this? Why can't you just reiterate it and explain it? Because you're the damn flipping teacher, right? So, and that's all I ended up having to deal with there. Plus the fact that I ended up dealing with all these people putting me down, making me feel like crap. And not to mention, I had people in the school, including one that I live with, never actually showed me that they actually really gave a damn until I started seeing it. I got picked on quite a bit by this one. Annoyingly, this one. And I say annoyingly because back then, to me, it was annoying. I'm not saying like now it's annoying. He can be sometimes, but that's just his nature. That's just how he is. Um, but at any rate, I got picked on quite a bit. It was either in a good way or a bad way. In the bad way, um, this is where this one comes into play. Um, one of a friend of mine, and I say a friend because I call him a friend, and I've past years, but a friend of mine, I went to school with him. We went to almost every class except for maybe two or three of them. Was Josh Neese, of all people. He had a huge crush on me, and he wanted to date me, and I wouldn't date him. So at any rate, he kept going on about how he wants to do this to me and how he wants to do that to me, and it was all um pretty much said privately and in private areas. um you can use your imagination. Well, this one caught wind of it, and he caught wind of it not once, not twice, but four times. And he got tired of it. So we ended up, all of us, the ones that I've mentioned, we all went to lunch together. And when we went to lunch together, this one caught wind of one of our friends that we actually talked to and were really close to, which was DJ. I can't remember his last name. Do you remember what DJ's last name was? Well, anyway, his name was DJ, and he went up to Josh, which is now my husband, went up to Josh and said, the other Josh is saying, this private stuff about this private area and such, and what I'm going to do. And then he had turned around and said, he wants to turn around and slap her ass and all that. Well, this one got really mad. And I mean, like, I don't want to say like mad, like, I want to rip your head off. It was more of, jealousy, I guess. Because to him, in his mind, I'm his already at that point. And when you're young, you can't really differentiate between, because you really don't understand it until you get older. And so he got really mad. And at this point, it's gone on for too long. And this one defended me, not that and it was something I never really noticed until it was done. And this one picked him up and slammed his head against the table in Seneca High School. And I'm sitting there like, my mouth is clear to the floor and down to the next room over. And I was not expecting that. And I looked at him, and he's just going off, just slamming his head. I'm like, you're going to kill him. And he's like, that's the fucking point. But I was like, I don't want anybody to go to jail tonight. But, you were young. You didn't notice that at the time. But, that brings us to that. So, I quit at about 3 months into graduation, and plus the fact I couldn't take, the whole family, mental abuse that I was dealing with. And so I left. I was talking to my dad when I was about, I was talking to my dad about 15. And everybody that, was really in my small, tight-knit circle knew my father. And because I was always, either on three-way with them. And three people that really got to know my dad was on three-way was this one, and Aaron and Angel are the only two that really got to know my dad, because they got to know him on three-way. Aaron wanted to meet my dad, which he never had a chance to. And Angel, she was too scared to know my dad. I mean, not really know him, more like physically, in the sense, know him. Because she said, he scares me. This one laughed. this one wanted to meet him, which he did, and we'll get to that. And so at any rate, I ended up leaving. I moved in with my dad, and never I because my I felt like my adopted family really never wanted me. So I ended up moving out. I couldn't deal with, the physical, mental, verbal abuse and being controlled. So um at any rate, so I stayed there with my dad for a while, and I started to get, back my old family, my birthright family, and that's when I got to know my family there. Plus, I got, some of my friends that had already graduated. I started, meeting some of my friends back then, and I was pretty happy about that. And then I ended up, in the process of the whole thing, I ended up meeting, this is where Rebecca's dad comes into play, which her name at that time, we will get to that. Her father's name was Billy, and I was with him and my dad, who had his own apartment, which he did, and he was very controlling and very abusive. Now, the reason why I state this now, I might be saying this, and I know my daughter's probably looking at me like, how how can he be when he's so nice and sweet to me? Well, let me tell you what you don't see behind closed doors. This one has met him, um, and from a third eye standpoint, I'm pretty sure you can see him behind me shaking his head. Yeah, that he has seen the mental and verbal abuse in front of him. That will be in another part, but it does go with this. So he was controlling and abusive to me, and I was also pregnant with my first baby girl, which I almost miscarried due to all the stress from him being an alcoholic and being mentally abusive to me. He was fighting my way to save my unborn daughter, which is Rebecca now. Um, my first baby girl almost miscarried due to all the stress from him being an alcoholic and being mentally abusive to me, and me fighting my way to save my unborn daughter. People around me that associated with me got suspicious of my well-being, and after my daughter, and her name at that time was Selena Rose Podolsky, and she was born January 2nd. She weighed 9 pounds and 2 ounces in Hammett Hospital. We had brought her home. I stayed home there with her to bond and spend time with her. She was my little quiet one, and she was because um anytime when I brought her home, she was the most quietest little girl I've ever been in contact with. And I've babysat a lot. And you've usually seen babies like constantly, coo and talk. And the only time she woke up was at night. She was nothing but a night owl. When she did, it was like, I want to eat, I want to go to bed. I want to get changed, I want to go back to bed. I mean, she was like the best. She was awesome. And she still is. In an adult way. But, she was always quiet, every and then as she got a little bit older, she would come out, she would play, and until, well, I'll continue reading it instead of giving it away here. She always talked when she felt comfortable enough to know certain people. That is still her today. Um, she and I are close, but we are kind of like a mother daughter distant, and that's um due to what she experienced in a woman. I completely understand it, and I let her talk to me whenever she's ready, and I completely understand it all, given the fact of what she internally knows. So she's kind of like at a distance, and I'm okay with that. Um, but she was my first ever. And as she got older, when she got to know people, she got to be a social butterfly. And she would always tell her own stories. It was adorable. But you gave her a bottle and she didn't want it. Oh boy, look out. She was throwing it at your head. And I kid you not, I would give her a bottle, and if she was not in the mood for it, she was aiming at your head. And I'm not candy coating, I'm not, saying anything that it isn't true. This really happened. I would put her in the crib. I'd give her a bottle for the night. I'd already have her changed. She already had her bath and everything. And if she wasn't having it, she was throwing. It didn't matter where it was. She had her mind already set. I'm awake, or being me. If mommy's awake, I'm awake. You are not putting me to bed. And I would leave her in the living room. She would just kind of chill out in her little bouncy and just watching TV, enjoying her cartoons or whatever I was watching at the time. And she did not like, her daddy fighting with me, because back then I thought, this one was annoying. This one, her father is more annoying than him. And not saying quite a bit. But she would she would aim it, and she didn't too much care for TV much as a baby, but she would watch like certain shows. Um it was more, I want my mama. I loved every minute of it, but the minute she didn't know you, she would cry her head off, and she would. If she didn't know you at all, she would cry like really badly. I mean, you would think somebody committed mass murder on a poor girl. I mean, that's how much she would cry, but that's just the way she was. She did not care too much for, big people, or get to know, big crowds or anything like that. She was always, I want mom, and that's it. That was always her. Um, and go mom up, which would be, that was one of her, first words she would say, uh, yup. That was one. And then the other one was mom. But in her case, it was mom. And to me, anyway, if I was not in the room with her, she would throw a fit and go, mom, 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 constantly. If it was not mom, it was nobody. But she adored her cousin, which was Jesse Watkins now, but was Oiler then. But if it wasn't me, Jesse, because there was certain few that she liked. She liked me, Jesse, and Cheryl. So she liked us three. But anyway, her dad, Billy, would go, no, dad. She would go, and no, go, mom, mom. It was so adorable. I love bouncing her on my leg, and me playing catcher and playing peekaboo with her, and going, where's Selena, which was her name, and then go, there she is. And anywhere I was, she wanted mom. Until I started school, I wanted always to stay by her side, but she was sick. The only way she fell asleep was in my arms. That was the only way she could ever fall asleep. If she wasn't in my arms, on my chest, or on my shoulder, she would not go to sleep at all. And that's just the way she was. She loved hearing, the sound of my heartbeat. That was always her. Well, I started school this time. I was told everyone in middle school had gone to Central. So that's where I went, um, to finish my school year, because I ended up quitting. And I wanted to go back to school because I wanted my kids to know, don't quit, keep going. You know, don't stop just because I do. Um, So at any rate, I started at this time. I told everyone in middle school I was going. Da da da. In the process of that, my daughter got sick quite a lot, which as a mother, I was scared and finding odd bruises on my baby girl. Um, she was in daycare while I was in school because her father had worked at a shoe shine place, which took care of shoes and shined them up and things like that. So at any rate, that's pretty much why she was in daycare. Um, at the time, I was quite pissed off at the time. I confronted anyone and everyone, pissed off as I was, and then I had her dad watch her so I can take a special trip to the daycare, which I did, and I confronted them with it. They kept saying like she would not sit still being changed. Now, with me, I know for a fact changing my daughter, yeah, she kicked, and that's only because I tickled her. I tickled her belly and I tickled her little face and her little nose and things like that. Yeah, of course they're gonna kick. That's what they do, you know. But after a while, she would let you put the diaper on, no problem. Well, of course she was insecure about the person. I proceeded to tell them they went on to she fell out of the crib. I knew that was a lie. She never did that until one day I was so worn out from trying to pass my test. I was doing a class for one of them where I could not fail. I was not trying to fail. I stayed up for the past 2 days trying to do um, my test, and I was studying for it because I knew that the next 2 or 3 days I had, the test full on. So I ended up studying for it. And, the one night I fell asleep and I guess I was having a nightmare. And because I woke up to Billy being her dad, and he was waking me up to tell me you're going to crush her. She was on the bed with me, and I was kind of, laying on my side, and I tried to put her like toward the middle of the bed. So if she were to roll off, she would be okay because she would not sleep in a crib at all. She was not that type of kid. You could not pay her to get in that crib. So she wanted to sleep with mom, which I was okay with. I was napping right along with her. And he woke me up to tell me that if I didn't get up, I was going to crush her. Now, mind you, there was this much away from me and her. And he thought I was going to turn on her. I understand he was being safe and precautious. So I fell asleep, I guess, and he said I was going to crush her while you're sleeping. I was like, no, she's is in the crib. He said, no, she isn't. She's right next to you. I woke up quickly to see her all nestled up to me, asleep with me, and I was in utter shock. I had no idea she was there. Um, because I started getting to the point where, okay, at this point of time, I was like, okay, you're gonna fit it out, and you're just gonna have to be in your own bed. So I put her in her crib. She ended up coming out of the crib. Don't ask me how. At this point of the story, I have no idea how. So I was in utter shock. I picked her up and put her back in the crib. As I fell asleep for a few hours went by, and I woke up again, and for some reason, I put her back and laid down and stayed awake. This time, I seen her rise up, and I closed my eyes enough to where I could see her. I closed them ever so slightly. Um, I am sleeping. Sure, here she was, crawling out of her crib. She was climbing out. I got up, spotted her, and I said to her, "What are you doing, my little stinker? Trying to be a sneaky?" She giggled and tried to climb back in. She did. She tried. I seen her. She looked at me like this. And I said, "What do you think you're doing, you little stinker?" And she goes, and then climbs back in really slowly, like, I didn't do nothing. No, nope, you see nothing type of thing. And I woke up to her and said, "You want to sleep with mama? There is going to have to be an adjustment here." So at that time, I told Billy, which was her father, I need more pillows because that is what my daddy told me I used to do and be like, buy them and you should be fine. Yeah, my dad, when I was little, I did the same thing when I was her age. I would climb out of the crib because I was so determined to be with my parents. And that's from what my dad had told me. And hi, Jonathan. Um, and so that's pretty much what I did back then. And that's where I ended up being, is next to my dad, my mom, and my dad. And I at that time wanted to be next to my dad. I was always a daddy's girl. So we did, and Selena was comfy sleeping like the baby she is. And I next following morning got ready for school. I slept late. It was go outgoing habit for me, all because I'm a mom and I love it. At least I could still go to school. I took my daughter back to daycare, yelled and told them this is your last chance to redeem yourself. While I'm at school, if my daughter is ever hurt again, I will be going to jail tonight for murder. I will defend at all cost for my baby. They of course assured me, or so they thought, that everything was going to be fine. It was far from it. I go to school and get called into the office. I am told I have too many absences or lates on my record. You can either leave or quit, or we're getting you for being truant. Now, at that time, my daughter was sick quite a bit, and I would always come to school late, or I just didn't go to school because I didn't trust the daycare because she was still coming home with bruises, and I called them and I made a fit. So I said, "Are you threatening me to quit?" They told me, "We're telling you to be on time." I told them it's kind of hard when you have to take care of your child to daycare and make the bus. They just kept telling me the same thing. I shook my head, walked back to class, told them what they told me. So they went on from August 13th, 2000 to May 30th. I got a call from the school telling me they're dropping all my credits and I am no longer allowed in at that point. I was fumed and felt like someone lit a fire underneath me. I came rising like a bull and said, "What am I supposed to do? Be a mother to a daughter while she's sick?" They told me they didn't care to hear anything I had to say. I took and went wherever with my baby girl from the dock to her dad's. Work, he didn't mind. He was a person who shined shoes for a living. Um, the looks I would get from people around me, they were scolding me at me, telling me I need to go back to school.
Hold on. It's leaking.
I told them how they dropped me. This one person who was a black person hated the fact I kept a good eye on my daughter.
Here.
She got mad and then proceeded to call children's services on me
There.
and got involved and took my daughter from me
Yeah.
because I had a child molestation background that I didn't know about, which I later found out that they just wanted my daughter all because she was blonde and greenish blue eyed to black market her and to make a buck, and they never wanted to help me then get her back, so they relinquished my rights to my daughter without me knowing. It it's the most I got was court papers and visits from when I visited her every day until they stopped that too. She loved to play her building blocks through and her rattle. I was crushed when they took me to court and I couldn't talk in the courtroom. Or nothing is what my attorney told me after the whole court was done. She was gone. I was crushed. I fell into being a drunk every day until my dad pulled me back and told me, "Do you think she would like to see you this way? If she found you, I fell to the floor in tears and I said, "No. I'm not going to stop or I'm going to stop today." I took what was left of my beer and dumped it at that time. Went on, I found Robert and David, and which they were verbally abusive toward me. Also, then I got pregnant again. My second daughter, Serena Louise Thomas, which is now Emma Carlson. I only knew of second who could have only knew of two people who could be the father. I lost Serena because of my ex when Billy caused. I got contractions on three, maybe 4 or 5 sheets of ice. So, because I fell on the ice and I ended up going and having contractions. Um, so that was why I was sent to St. Vincent Hospital March 1st, 2021. They wouldn't even let me hold her or nothing. They just called children's services and took her away. I was frozen in tears. They wouldn't let me touch her or anything. They took her away. I stood there in front of the window crying, "Give me my baby back, please. I wanted my daughter. You have no right to her." I pounded at the window. They couldn't hear me. I ran to try and leave. The officers were in front of me, say, "You can no longer leave, ma'am, until they call and tell us the baby is safe." I hit the cop and they understood my hurt and frustration, but they really never did. I fought it this time. They tried to get me to lose my daughter, and I went to everything they threw at me, and they again went over me and took her. I didn't know where she was. Was she safe? Are they going to be okay? Nothing. I had one court hearing, and that was them telling me they went behind my back and took her away. I said, why? I did everything you told me to do. They wanted me to do all kinds of parenting classes and things like that, and I did. Um, is she going to be safe? Is she going to be okay? Nothing. I had one court hearing, and that was them telling me behind my back that they took her away. I said, why? I did everything you asked me to do. I fought and fought and fought this time. I prayed through. Jesus, please, if I have to give my child up, and may it be your will for them to find me. I would appreciate it very, very much. That if it is your will, they will find me. I, at this point, was still in the courtroom, knowing they did it already. I went home to my dad's in tears of thought that I failed as a mother. I let myself go completely because I was two pieces of my stolen from my own heart. Then I met here we go to Jeremiah. I didn't know about his background, neither. I was with him for most of my time. He was controlling, demanding, and didn't know that at the time. Then I lost my third daughter, which was mine and Jeremiah's. Third daughter, because of him, or so I thought. Nope, they made up again as they went on to tell me it was because of him. I will not disclose that information because that is between the family and me. And the family already knows that story. And I will keep that hidden. Um, they utilize that as the background for him. Um, Also, I was raped again at 22 years of age, which that happened when I was vulnerable and missing my kids. I could not read any red flag of warning on if he was good or bad. I was moving into my old house I grew up in. To my excitement, my Aunt Brenda lived there on the first floor. I was going to be living upstairs. Well, the guy I had moved in my old home I grew up, oh, I said that part, trying to help me, took advantage of my kindness. Then, well, let's get to that part where I'm leaving off. So my Aunt Brenda and I, we got along really, really well. And that's where I got to be around my cousin Tina and Marcy. And then I started to meet my Aunt Sherry on and on. Um, at that point, I ended up dealing with that. And then I ended up dealing with a lot of mental and physical abuse. And again, like I said, some of this is all of this is all past, and we've already apologized, moved on. Um, but I mean, we had our good times. Me and Jeremiah, we had our good times. We had our bad times. But it's not just they were bad times. I mean, they were like really, really bad. I mean, it was like sometimes it was physical, sometimes it was mental, and me and him already know. And if anybody brings it up, please don't. Um, like I said, this is just for my kids. This is not just for people to bash, his family or, Lisa's family. This is just for my kids. So my kids know me and know what has happened. Um, but at any rate, moving on, I, me and him didn't work out at that time, and we went our separate ways, but we ended up staying friends. And so I had moved in with a friend of mine named Emery Black, and um, or no, I moved in with him, and then I moved in with Ed Estes, and that's where I met my son's father, which is Justin. And Justin was a very heavy drinker, and I don't want to say like alcoholic type. It was um, more of on a social level, basically. Um, but his words, some of his words were very offending, and some of them weren't. But then again, I was young minded and I didn't understand it at the time. Um, so with this, while I'm on this story, I'm going to fill you in. Justin and I, we had a lot of good moments versus a lot of bad moments. A lot of the bad moments were mostly because of um, certain situations that I would put myself into, or it would be like situations that I decided to do. And instead of me trying to think with an older mind, I ended up thinking with a younger, and saying, you don't see that, it's happening, things like that. And I would end up not believing him, and or I would just do my own thing. And that's where him and I clashed heads quite a bit. I mean, as an adult now, we get along well. Um, so back then we kind of didn't. I would also make wrong choices. Um, uh, and always he did stand up for me um, a lot, and I didn't even some of the stuff I didn't even know about until we like split up. And when we did split up, that's when I started hearing about, Justin did stand up for me, and you know really never knew it. I didn't see it at the time, and uh, I thought in my head, um, we're right, and uh, at that time I thought that I was right and he was wrong. And when I seen what I seen was not so, and I got mad and I dumped him. Oh yeah, I remember that moment quite well. We were, I was at his job. I always went there, to visit him, and during his breaks and stuff, or we would end up like staying, the night and stuff, and um, be it like late. There was one time that I ended up leaving, and I was like really sick. And everybody knows when I get really sick, I get really, really grouchy. And well, you figure that and him being his normal self. If he sees somebody sore, like uh, like his friend was, and this was a female, uh, it, it's no different than what he would do with me. If you're sore, he's gonna massage your shoulders or your back or whatever to make you feel better. Loosen you up a little bit so you're okay. Um, I didn't take it like that. I literally thought he was cheating on me, and I dumped a whole bottle of beer on his lap and threw my engagement ring at him. Wrong move on my part, but that's okay. Um, I found out that I was carrying my son, and I will state this now. We have grown past this. Like I said, me and Justin, we get along fine. We're past this now. We've already discussed all that. Um, but the thing is that he chose to stay, And I understand why he did now. I didn't then because I was young minded and I kind of made a big fuss about it. And so from then on, I ended up moving because he didn't want to come with me. And I ended up moving from there to Florida with my mom. And at this point, it really looked like my mom was trying to flirt with my man at the time. So being pregnant, you think like crazy things. You think like everything's out to get you or something's out to hurt you in some way, shape, or form while you're pregnant. And or just everything's like twisted wrongly. And I pretty much got to that point and I just, thought some stupid shit. But even though it wasn't, so, everybody was having fun, at my mom's and everything until I met Greg, which is the guy she was with, which is where I met my brothers, which was William, Clifford, and Nicholas. And that was when um, I noticed that Greg was mistreating my mom. I got along with all my brothers. Um, but the minute I seen Greg, throwing stuff at her, being really, really mean and nasty to my mom. I mean, he was like throwing paper in her face, and she just got home from work, and you're gonna throw stuff at her. I mean, what kind of boyfriend are you? So at that point, I knew where my ideas were pretty much dead on, and I had contacted a friend of mine named Amanda, and that's where it leads me here, which is where I met. And so she told me to, you come stay here, come move to Minnesota. And so me and Jeremiah, he ended up working and ended up making up the money for the time to come here. And that's where I ended up here because I did not appreciate the way my mother was being treated. I didn't like it at all, none the least bit. So I moved here, and that's when I started living with Amanda, time which was Amanda Shane and her son Junior, which has the same name as Shane. And at first we all got along, and then you know, everybody just kind of fought a lot. Nobody really, you got one side trying to grow older, and then you have another one that's kind of like trying to grow older but stay young, and then you have another one just trying to stay young. So we all just kind of bumped heads quite a bit. And then I ended up meeting a friend of mine at that time, which was Kay. Um, so I ended up moving in with her because we all were feuding. We were having like a whole bunch of times to where we were like cats and dogs. Basically, we're just there. And so I ended up me and Jeremiah ended up moving in with her. Well, at that point we were kind of me and Kate at thought at first we were kind of close, but then we kind of like felt like we were close but we were distant. And that's where Jeremiah met Mike, which is Michael Doghan. And we all would go like karaokeing together and things like that. That's where the karaoke started, like nonstop. And everything was fine. And then until I started, my mind started playing tricks on me again. Started thinking that, he's cheating on me, he's this, he's that. And that's where everything started happening, where him and I would fight. I'm going out more, he's going out less, he's going out more, or I'm going out less. We were feuding back and forth. And yeah, it was a pretty bad story. Um, but at any rate, onward to where we had our own apartment and we lived over here in Diamond Village together. We had our moments. You had him trying to do whatever he wants, and I say this with the utmost niceness, but it's the truth. He wanted to do his thing, I wanted to do my own thing. I mean, Truth be told. Okay. And when we did that, we argued, we fought, we had disagreements. I mean, he would always tell me, you're going to do this or that. And to me at that time, it was like, okay, I'll do it to satisfy you. Okay, so in my mind, that's pretty much what I thought, and so I ended up doing it. Well, by this time, my son was born, and we were fighting in front of him and things like that. And then Josh came, started staying with us, and then that's where I found out where him and I clicked, because when who's coming up the stairs?
Me?
Okay. Hey, I'm just talking about you too.
What are you talking about?
It was the time you first time got here, as a matter of fact.
I'm talking behind my back.
I'm not talking behind your back. You're right here. But it's to the point where I thought, at that moment it was my normal. To him, it was not, because when he got here, he got to see, the full thing about, we had our moments where he wanted to go do his own thing, and I'm gonna go do my own thing, and then we fought, and then pressure into doing things I didn't want to do, or him doing things that I didn't want to do. But yeah, we're all past that. And then after that, him and I split. And then the reason being is because him and I had a fight. And the reason for that fight is my own. Because instead of me being the personal person that I am to just get up and walk away and let things be, I didn't. I ended up pushing him, and I got into a push and shove match, which is what started the lesson of life for me to be in jail. And I know that's one of the main reasons what he did it for, was to, hey, look, this is what's going to happen. Because at that time, him and I would fight a lot. And I literally told him, get out of my place. We ended up getting in a push and shove match. He got so mad about me being on the computer. I mean, we even laugh about it now. It's kind of stupid. But he ended up trying to break my computer. So I found still today I find funny. And went from there. I went to jail. My friend at that time was Val, who ended up taking care of my son at the time. And this is while he was already back home in Erie. And I ended up going to jail for a few days. And that's when I found out about, him and Lisa. No pun intended. Again, past, over and done with. But at first I didn't really see it. Them two did get together, after he left middle school. And, I didn't know that at the time. So I kind of got really mad. I mean, when I came back, I actually apologized to both of them, and that's how we ended up talking. But certain things that he goes through, I ended up following, and I ended up over the years acting like. And we had our moments. We did things sexually every once in a great blue moon until I internally, and he internally looked at each other and like, this ain't right. So we kind of split off. And so I ended up moving out of my apartment because I had met Kenny at this time. And then when I met Kenny, I met his family, which is where Kayla and Amber come into play. I ended up staying down there for a few months. I ended up I ended up meeting my mom in the process when I was with Jeremiah too. So And then, like I said, I went to Ohio. I did not like Ohio at all, other than, meeting Kayla and Amber. Those two were the only ones that really treated me um, fairly, I should say. Amber was young at the time. She didn't know how to take me. She didn't know if I was going to be like, them, or if I was going to be, how she knows me now. So she just was kind of like, do I do this or do I do that? So her and I, we thought we've already we're past all this, now in the present we are. I mean, then she kind of, she will even admit to you, she treated me like very badly. But later on, after that, we got really close. She would like lay on me and things like that. We got really close together. And Kayla, we were already starting to get close because she decided to let me in right away just to see how I was. And so over that time, um, we ended up staying there for I think it was either Christmas, maybe Thanksgiving. I'm not 100% sure, but I ended. I think it was both, and um, Kayla's and Amber's dad, um, because Jonathan was young, he was loud, very sociable, very loud, and instead of him being, kind, caring, and loving, going, hey, keep it down, he decided to do the utmost by screaming in my son's ear, which now he's half deaf because of that. Yeah. Um, so at that point, I couldn't take it anymore with everything that I was seeing the kids go through, Kayla and Amber, the way they were being treated. I needed out like immediately, if not later. And so I ended up leaving. And then I ended up coming back here. And I stayed with Jeremiah and Lisa for a little while until I got my own place. And then I got to an apartment. And then I stayed by myself for a while, ended up meeting up with my dad again, thanks to him, because my dad was on his deathbed. And so I ended up visiting my dad. He and I split off. I ended up coming back in the 25th of May, moved into an apartment, and then that leads me here because after that part, he ends up moving in with me. We end up getting married, and then everybody knows the rest. So that's pretty much the end of my story. So if everybody's sitting here watching this, I'm glad y'all stuck it out with me, and at least now my kids know my life. I love you guys, and goodbye.